Well, after the flooding in the basement, everything just kind of got put wherever we could cram it. And I am just now trying to unpack and organize piles of stuff. I'm not gonna lie, it's not like it wasn't piled up in here before. The difference is it was all over the floor. And now it's all over the table or in totes or on the chair. So yeah, we're going to work on trying to at least find a spot on this table that I can work.
Not gonna lie, nowhere near even being able to claim that I've made a dent in this mess. But I decided that you need to celebrate the small wins, and I am going to reward myself for cleaning off my work table by allowing me a little bit of time to remake some thrifted finds and tackle my stash. I consider it's still cleaning because it's getting these items out of here and into my booth or online, and therefore it still qualifies as working and getting the craft room cleaned up. But anyway, I'll tell you about these items as we go. I'm going to make some of them over. Some are simple. Some are just, actually, I think they're all simple. But anyway, you can let me know in the comments how simple you think they were.
So I pulled out these projects, and I think this is what we're going to start with. These are just some items that are in the stash that have been thrifted, and some of them have been partially done. So we're going to finish them up and get them ready to either sell on the website or in our vendor mall.
Okay, project number 1. I picked up these absolutely awesome frames for just almost nothing. And I think they're so pretty. I like the picture that's in it, but it's very faded. I'd say it probably sat somewhere, with the sun shining on it, and it caused them to fade. So we're going to paint the frame and see if we can't get that picture to pop. So question, and I will have already made a decision by the time you guys are seeing this, but you can let me know whether you agree or disagree with the decision that I made. I have 2 different paints. One is the Debi's Design Diary green color Eden. This is one of the newer colors, and it is a very green. And I think it will pull, if I can get you without, I think it will really pull that green out of here. Or I can go with one of my favorite colors, Fusion Carriage House, that looks more like the green that is in the picture, so it matches it more. So I need to decide which one I'm going to do and get going, I think we'll start with taking these apart. They have screws. They're probably some old home interior. Yep, Homeco. Yep, so there's some vintage Homeco, and I'm going to take this out so I can paint the frame and clean the glass separately. And, all right, let's get started.
What if the world had more of your smile? What if the wind could spread your love? What if your sweetness could reach everyone? There'd be no wars.
I decided to help me decide that I am going to paint part of one with the Eden and part of one with the carriage house, and then I am going to put the backing in there with the picture and see which one I think looks the best. So I know they're not exactly the color they'll be when they're dry, but I think they're pretty close. So I just wanted to kind of give it a look. This was the one I was leaning toward, the carriage house. It's by Fusion, all in one paint. And it really seems like it's the same color that is in that greenery. And I know this greenery is kind of faded. It's just, they're older pictures, but it's still so beautiful. Not greenery, but the picture, the green in the picture. You get what I'm saying, right? But I thought that darker green would really kind of make it pop and make it not look as faded. But I felt like it was really hard, you guys. This is really hard. Trying to pick which one I think is going to complement it. Okay, I decided to go with Debi's Design Diary in the color Eden.
Maybe the birds will sing about your heart. Maybe the trees will whisper the word. Maybe the sun will spread your joy to the ones who lost their hope.
Once my paint had dried, I went back in with a wet wipe, and I'm just wet distressing. I wanted to bring back that floral detail, and plus I wanted some of that gold to come through. I wanted them to look aged and worn, and since this is a clay-based paint, I need to make sure that I'm using something to seal it. So I'm using Debi's Design Diary Wax, and I'm going to start with the clear. And I'm going to go ahead and give everything an overall clear coat. This will just give me a little bit more control with the dark wax. There's some folks that do it the other way and they put the dark on and then they come back in if it's too dark and they can kind of use that clear as an eraser. But I like to start with the clear and it just helps me wipe off some of that dark. If I get a little too thick, it's kind of, that clear has made it easier to wipe off. Anyway. I didn't want to put my brush in there. It's kind of got that green paint on it and the clear wax. So I dipped my paper towel and just got a chunk of that dark wax off and then dipped my brush on the paper towel. And it gave me plenty. Again, I don't really need it to be overall. I just want to kind of give some aging to that floral in there so you can see the difference of the one that's already been waxed to the one that hasn't. And then just giving the glass a good cleaning. They were very dirty. They looked like maybe they had been sitting in somebody's garage or something for a while. So just cleaning all that dust off and then this is a shoe shine brush. It's my favorite way to do this. And I like to buff that wax after I've wiped off the excess and then given it time to kind of dry, if you will. It's still a little bit sticky or it has a little friction when you first put it on there, but then you let it cure a little bit and then come back with that brush to buff it, and it gives it just a little bit of a shine, not so much that it's like a gloss paint, but it just helps to smooth that out and make it feel really nice to the touch. So we're going to put them back together, adding the glass in first, of course. And then putting our picture. There really wasn't anything to do to the picture, but just keep it safe and clean while I was working on the frame. And believe it or not, it matters which way these go in. I thought those 4 little screw holes were even, but when I went to put that on there, it didn't line up. So I learned that it does matter which direction it's facing. But once I did that, I put our screws back in, I put the other one together, and I really think I made the right choice with this green, but you guys let me know, you like it better before or now?
You keep turning heads when you walk by. If they only knew you left me blind. You don't even notice their starry eyes, 'cause you are looking straight into mine. Yeah, you could have anyone you want, but I'm the one who gets to take you home.
Our next project is this Pool Silver Company bowl. It would have sat down inside of something, probably another silver stand. It did have some kind of worn places on it. It's silver plated. And I am going to paint it with that Fusion carriage house. And please don't come at me. These things, are almost nothing at yard sales and garage sales and thrift stores. So I decided that I would give this a new look and then maybe it will have a chance to sell. I'm taking a baby wipe and distressing back so some of that silver, especially around that edge where it has that beautiful trim. And this paint has a built-in sealer, so it does take a little bit more elbow grease to distress it back. But now we're going to take our Rose Botanical IOD transfer, and we are going to pick a beautiful little pink rose from the very last page. And I'm just cutting off some of the excess, especially because of this having kind of the curved up surfaces, being a bowl. And then I'll just cut off this cute little piece here and save that for something in the future. But I like to cut off as much of the excess as possible to make sure. And then you just peel off that backing and lay your transfer down on the carrier sheet. Now, it does have a little bit of tack to the transfer itself. So a lot of times once you have set it down, especially on something like this paint that's got a built-in sealer, so it's very ready to go, it will stick. So most of the time once you have released it and it has touched, you are committed. You can't shift it around. I like to take mine and you just use the plastic applicator stick that comes with every IOD transfer. And I like to just kind of push down a little bit everywhere to try to keep it from moving or shifting as I work. And then I pick a spot where I'm kind of committed to that's the direction I'm going to go. And I just gently lift up as I push down with the applicator stick until it is completely adhered everywhere. And then I take that plastic sheet that it was on and I just rub gently over top of it. This is burnishing it in and making sure that everywhere was completely adhered to the surface. And because this paint has a built-in sealer, I don't have to use that clear wax. It'll still give me the control to wipe back some of this dark wax. But I want to age it a little bit and kind of give it, a little bit more dimension, especially in those details around the edge. So I am just using that dark wax. And I will apply it on there and then I will wipe off the excess, holding it with a paper towel to avoid leaving a fingerprint in there. And I'm just going to get all the excess wax off and then it is ready. It could be left at this stage. You could be done with it here. It will take, a little while, a few weeks for the wax to completely cure, but I am going to make this something that someone could use in their gallery wall. And so I picked up these little adhesive hooks. They're from Amazon. I'll include the link in the description below. Just remember that if you purchase something from my Amazon store, I do get a tiny, tiny bit of a kickback. I think, as a matter of fact, I have like 45 cents waiting right now. So yeah, I'm not going to get rich, but every little bit helps. So I just peel off that back and I stick it on there and make sure that it is right side up. I don't want to put it on and have it upside down. And then I realize you can't actually see what I'm doing at all. So I'm going to pull that down. But again, I just stick it on there. I wouldn't probably hang it with it that way for a few days.
It's the way that you love me in the morning. It's the way that you love me through the night. Let's just shut the blinds to keep the world inside.
This next little frame, I thought I was recording, and when I went to hit stop recording, I apparently hit start recording. So anyway, you get the point. I painted this with the carriage house, and then I am going to use that same dark wax and just add that in there to bring out all those beautiful details. I just, this was that one that was kind of an off-white color. It was very bland, not real exciting. And I thought that this would help liven it up, and we're going to do this and add a picture. I'm just kind of wiping off the excess and leaving it down in those details. And then my favorite thing to do to help finish that out is to take a dry, clean brush, and I just kind of brush it around and smooth out so there's no big chunks in any of that really deep detail. And then I'm going to use this rice paper. It is... you can't see it. I'm going to show you here in a second because I accidentally realized the camera wasn't showing, but it's that little girl with the teddy bear. I will put what that is down in the description. I can't remember. I looked it up before I started doing the voiceover on this, but I can't remember what it was now. But I cut it just to size, and I think frames sell so much better when there is a print in them, so I always make sure to add some kind of picture in my frames. Isn't it pretty with our silver bowl that we painted? I feel like these thrifted candle holders could be from almost any era. Everything from mid-century to, within the last decade or so. I'd say they're probably more likely to be 80s and 90s maybe. But I'm going to give them a makeover. I know that a lot of the wood items are coming back and people are adding more wood accents, but I just think that they are boring and they need a makeover. I discovered when I was cleaning that that screw is in there and that they actually come apart, which will make it like way easier for painting. And I'm going to paint all the pieces, including that black metal part. Just going to get that out of there, and then I'm going to run it out to the garage where I use a gold spray paint and just give them a gold. So that way they kind of match my pictures that I did earlier with the green and gold. And because of that, I'm actually going to paint them with that same Debi's Design Diary color Eden. And I was holding on to them like this, and then I realized, you know, hey, I bet I have a box laying around here somewhere. And so I stuck the screws down in the box to paint, and with these I just used a toothpick and poked that in there and painted, and then I had enough sense to actually poke it in the box and do it. And then using that same color, I'm going to do the base. So all the wood parts are going to be colored in that Eden, and I just did one coat. Debi's Design Diary paint covers absolutely beautifully. It's a very pigmented clay-based paint. And so one coat was plenty, especially since I'm going to distress them back. I'm going to use some 220 sandpaper after this package gets the best of me and I finally am able to open it and get a piece of sandpaper out. But I'm just going to do it by hand and try to smooth out any brush strokes. I'm going to go around the edges where it naturally would have distressed anyway and just get it all smooth. I also do the back and clean it up real good if I got any green paint. That way the back is good and clean as well. But what happens with this paint, of course, is all that beautiful pigment sanded and made a little bit of a mess on my drop cloth here. So I'm going to get out the trusty Ladybug. She cleans up my workspace. She works really well on a desktop. It's a little bit harder on the drop cloth just because that pigment's kind of dyeing the fabric. But overall, she does great. I will also put a link to her in the description. She is also on the Amazon store, but I absolutely love it. I just used a wet wipe to kind of get some of that remaining dust off. It kind of distressed it just a little bit more, but I don't mind. I was really going for that old and worn out look. But I am going to completely distress these, and then I'm going to move on to those other wood pieces. Not using the sandpaper, but just sticking simply with the wet wipe here. But again, I'm just trying to give it a worn look. I want it to seem like, rather than something from the, 2000s, maybe something from the early 1900s. I just really love that green, and I think distressing it really gives it that aged look. Now I am using the dark wax and covering it with that same brush that I've been using, and I'll just put that on there, wipe off the excess wax, and then again buff it before putting them back together.
I hope we don't fail to see the beauty of being free. Don't forget what you love the most. I just wanna keep you close, so we have to give it one more try before the idiots are taking over. They're caught up in the race of wanting more, and we can tell one from the other. No one can tell you what they're running from. No one knows anymore. What's it for? What's it for? So much more than we've been told, way beyond what we can hold. So keep your eyes open.
Next, I'm going to work on a vintage frame. I love these old gold frames, and this really isn't as much of a makeover as it is cleaning it up and adding artwork. Again, I think these frames sell so much better when they have something in them. I do go a little bit bold with this one, rather than keeping to its classic vintage style. But I'm going to clean the glass real quick with my spray cleaner here. And then I will begin adding in this Jamie Ray Vintage picture. It's from the membership group. I'm going to use my glass to measure it out, so I know exactly what size to put it back in there. and just it's as simple as putting all of these pieces back in there. And I really did add all of them, including the partial Kleenex box. The back was in really bad shape, so it apparently had originally had a way to sit it on a desktop, as opposed to only being able to hang it. But that had been broken off, and my guess is because whoever had it had torn it off so they could hang it flat on the wall. So I'm going to use the self-adhesive velvet and put on the back so it gives it a nice, new, easy back. I decided to put it on the smooth side rather than this side that you can see up here, because I really wanted it to be nice and smooth and pretty and finished on the back. I went ahead after I put it back together, and I also added another one of those little self-adhesive hooks so that it had a way that you could still hang it.
Okay, so our next piece is this little planter box that is from, I believe, the Dollar General, and then we used IOD molds to add this. It was at the same time that we made this box that we will be finishing today, and that we painted this planter, which I think is also, didn't say, also from the Dollar General. I think these were clearance items. This I picked up at Goodwill. I'm sure it might have been a yard sale. When I say that these have been in my craft room for years, like with an S, I'm not exaggerating. So we are trying to get this. I think there's probably video somewhere of when I started these, but because I never finished it, I don't actually even know if the video is still on my camera somewhere or stored. All right, so that all being said, I am going to use these Dollar Tree foam. I don't know, that one actually I think came from Walmart. Yeah, this one's from Walmart. It's old. And that's what I'm going to put in here, but I'm going to have to cut it to make it a little smaller.
Standing underneath the lights, looking to...
All right, there we go. And we will get our fun little ladybug back out. And let's clean this up. But anyway, let's go ahead and do our flowers. These flowers are from Temu or Temu or however you say that. I have since deleted the app because it's, once you start buying stuff from them, they will send you a bazillion notices trying to get you to buy more, and it's crazy. So I finally just said, you know what, I'm done. I'm not doing anymore. If I decide that I absolutely have to have something that they have that I want and I can't find somewhere else, then I might think about putting that on there again, but oh my goodness, no thank you. All right, so here are our little flowers. One of the things I think that helps to keep things looking more real is when you cut them apart and you don't leave them all in the bunch like this. So I'm going to grab some cutters so we can start getting those separated. All right, I'm going to leave them relatively long for now. I can always change that, but that way I know I've got plenty of room to shove them down in there and I can move them around.
Collapse into water when they hit the ground. I hear the sound of empty streets. Yesterday has gone to sleep, so all that's left is you and me.
I do not know where this goes. Well, I hate that it fell off. I love all the fullness of having the flowers. Oh goodness, I'll mess with it later. Okay. All right. So we're going to take some different greenery here and start kind of doing the same thing. We're just going to cut off the pieces and start filling in some greenery. I don't know that I'm necessarily going to get enough to hide all of that stuff on the bottom. So I'm going to end up having to stick something down in there. I don't know that my grass is going to be a very good idea. I'm not going to lie, flower arrangement's never been my strong suit. My daughter can do all kinds of stuff with flowers that she stops and grabs at the grocery. She never buys the bouquets already done. She buys her own flowers so she can make them up. Because she is way better at this than me.
I've been thinking about you. I'm waiting for it all to come true. I'm longing to hear you say.
So again, going to use the floral foam. I was looking to see, I don't know where this one's from. It was a bunch of pieces, so it obviously was not from Dollar Tree, but it was probably from Michael's or Joann's or something. So we'll cut it in half, stick it down here. The bad thing is this is real wide down at the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and put my extra pieces from that other one, try to get it, tighten it up in there. And on this one, I'm going to stick kind of with a monochrome look, and I'm going to use these. These are actually from Dollar General. These are $6 at Dollar General, but I absolutely love these. They're my favorite place to get this particular type of flower. Dollar General has some really good floral. And they do buy one get one free a lot, so that's when I pick mine up. So I would have actually have only had 3 cents, I wish, $3 in these, so I would have picked up 2 for $6. I'm going to cut all this down, but we won't really leave them this long when we put them in here. But I just wanted to go ahead and get them all separated so I could see what I had to work with.
You know that I miss us. I wanna be the one that you trust, 'cause you have stole my heart away. There can be no other. Baby, I don't even bother.
Alright, there we go. You guys, I mean, how easy peasy. And I'm not gonna bother with the Spanish moss or my grass or anything. I'll save those and use it on something else, because I mean, I don't think I need it. I do want to say, just because this is so unfinished, that what I do, it's got stuff glued on it. I will actually put a piece here. I'll just show you, and maybe I'll go ahead and do it right now. I buy this stuff both in the 8.5 by 11 sheets, and I also buy the roll. I've got a roll of brown and a roll of black. I use this to finish out the bottoms or the backs of things, and I just think that it looks so much better. I mean, obviously if somebody bought this and they're buying it for the top, but then if they flip it over, then it's like, oh, you know. So I you know, just because we're crafters and DIYers, you know, it does not mean that we should be sloppy. I'm all about people knowing that we have done this, but I don't ever want people to think, oh, that was crazy, to think that we do not take pride in what we do, and that we're not still going to try to have the best that we can. All right, here, I'm just kind of making sure it's taking advantage of the 2 corners that are already on there. Oh my goodness, you guys, see? You can't see what I'm doing. So I'm going to put it over on the edge so that I won't have to cut those sides. And then I'm going to get a pencil. Thought I had one sitting here on my desk. Apparently I don't. And then I am going to hold that still and trace it. And there we go. So we'll I'm going to cut on the inside of my pencil mark so that I can try to make sure that I'm on the inside there. I don't want it to hang over the edge. This is self-adhesive, so like a big velvet sticker. And I'll fluff my flowers back up in a second, and I'm going to flip it upside down again. And we are going to tear off the back
And so stick it on here. There we go.
Would you stay till the morning light, or would you follow me, or would you let it be? If I leave tonight, we could do this right, we'll find the remedy. Or would you stay with me now till the morning light?
So I grabbed the other picture frame, and I am going to do more of a clean, add artwork, and resell. This is not really an upcycle, but I am using the JRV rice paper pastoral sheep that you can get from JamieRayVintage.com, using the glass to measure how big I need it, cutting off all the excess, and then I'm going to put it back together, adding cardboard to help thicken it a little bit to make sure that glass stays tight. I don't do anything to the back of it. It is actually in pretty good shape, and I absolutely love how this one turned out.
Hey everybody, I have some exciting news that I wanted to share with you. So if you are still here this far, I wanted to let you know that we have moved AmpersandUniqueGifts.com from our former provider over to Shopify. So we are in the process of uploading new items. So most of the items that you have seen me make over are going to be available on our new website. And also many of the thrifted finds that we have. So I hope you'll keep checking back often, because we are working hard to get everything ready to photograph, weigh, measure, and get on the website. If you are not a subscriber of our YouTube channel here, then I hope that you will consider hitting that subscribe button. If you like what you see, give us a thumbs up, share it out, and comment. Let me know what was your favorite item. Anything that you would have done differently, things that you would potentially like to see in the future. And I hope that this has inspired you to look at items in either the thrift store or even around your own home differently, and maybe give them an upcycle. So anyway, let's get back to it. We're rounding the bin here. We just got the 2 items to finish. Let's get going.
We're going to move on to this one, and this one is going to be a lot harder. Only because I'm going to make it hard on myself. So this, I honestly, if I remember correctly, it was plaid. It had like a plaid paper on it. And when I tried to paint over it, and the paper kind of started to peel. And so I picked the paper off the best I could, but it was, you could see places, and that was why I decided to use this salt wash when I painted it, so that it would have that texture. But the inside had velvet that was filthy, dirty, and gross. And I pulled it off, and you can see, you know, it's kind of it has paint on it there. I don't know if that is the cake batter that the rest of it was. It looks like it might be, or if I had bleed through. But my intent was to paint the inside, and I just decided it's kind of textured, and you can see where some of the glue was. So I decided that I'm actually going to decoupage it. It's white. It won't be too bad. So then I went through my stash, and I found some napkins, and I think that this flowered napkin looks like it'll be a nice surprise of a pop of color. I don't think that, you know, we have our flowers here. I don't think it'll be too bad to have flowers. It has yellow in it, so it matches that cake batter. But the problem is that while this napkin is plenty big to do this, I want to make sure that I cut the pieces appropriately. So I don't know. Like I said, it probably would have been a simple thing to finish up if I just painted the inside, but I felt like that was just not going to be what it needed. So here I go.
The reason I wanted to use it out in the middle of the napkin was just because I thought it would line up better. When I was cutting the piece, I could line them up. And so I was going through here, and then it suddenly dawned on me that if I would just fold it back up and use half of the dimensions, then I could go ahead and cut on that corner. And when I unfolded it, it would be the size of the bottom of the box. So that made it a little bit easier to at least get that first initial piece started. And then I went through and cut out all the rest of them, just measuring the size and making sure that I had all 4 pieces that I needed to begin the decoupage.
Okay, while I was not on camera, I actually went ahead and painted the inside of this with our cake batter. That is our undercoat that we used here. I did the bottom and the inside. I just thought, you know, after cutting the pieces out for decoupaging in here, I really didn't think I wanted to do this like dome and these little pieces. So I thought, you know, let's just do that. And then we will go ahead and white wax it so that it has a little bit more that same color here. So I want to tone it down a little bit. So we're gonna just do our white wax before we begin our decoupage on the inside of this piece. Now, I am using the Sweet Pickins beeswax for my white wax here.
Just like the dark wax that we used earlier, you just apply the wax and then you wipe off the excess, and then of course you always have the option to come back and buff it later.
All right, to decoupage, we're going to be using the Debi's Design Diary DIY Liquid Patina in the color Crystal Clear Chandelier. I'm going to shake it up real well. And give it a couple taps to unseal. And ta-da! Here we are. Going to pour a little bit out into a separate container so that we don't contaminate our entire container of it. And then I'm going to put a very generous layer inside here. It does dry clear. I know it looks pretty white on our, you know, in our container here, but it does dry completely clear. Use my piece that goes on the bottom here, and I'm going to spray it. This is just water. It's just a bottle of water. When you spray it, it kind of helps to release those wrinkles. I'm going to stand up and try to center it here. This will be the hardest part for me, to get it down inside there in the center. All right, going to not too worried if it has wrinkles. Part of the fun of DIY. Just kind of laying another coat here. I do normally like to, when I'm using decoupage paper instead of napkins, I like to let it dry before I put this top coat back on. But I'm kind of doing it here to smooth out my napkin as much as I can. Napkins are a little more fragile. I don't want to put my finger in there and get going. I'm afraid that, you know, you don't realize how sticky your own skin is until you try to use your hand to smooth out very thin decoupage papers or napkins or tissue papers. So I don't know if you can see down in there. It does have wrinkles. Again, I'm not too worried about it. What I'm more worried about is making sure that it's adhered completely to the bottom. And then I'm going to try to do it with it upright. Do it like this instead of laying it down. Alright, I think that is going to have been better. Alright. Same process. I'm going to take my brush and more liquid patina, flatten that out there. I'm going to get these bubbles out of here. Alright, that's the key. The key is not trying to do it laying down. Okay, let's get the rest of this on real quick. I'm going to lay it down while I add the liquid patina, then we'll stand it up and put our paper on here.
It was definitely a challenge. I knew it would be hard to get inside that box, and then of course the hinge didn't open all the way, so the lid was in the way. But once I started going in from the top instead of trying to do it laying down, it really made it easier. But I used all 4 sheets, lined them up, and then covered it with that liquid patina. And one thing I forgot to tell you is these napkins are 2-ply. Most of them are 2 or 3. And I didn't show you earlier, but you always want to make sure that you pull them apart and that you're only using that top layer to decoupage. I always save all those other pieces just for scrap later, just for napkins and such. And once everything had dried, I just take a piece of 220 sandpaper and I go around the edges to kind of cut it. That way it gives that nice organic look, and then it also just, you sand it and peel off the excess.
Didn't I make you laugh? Didn't I make you smile? Didn't I make you feel like you were happy for a while?
Our last item of the day is this cute little rack here. I don't know if this is for magazines or whatever you want to put on it. You could put a little blanket here, keep it up off the floor. You could set it in the middle of the table with a beautiful flower scape in it. I absolutely love it. We're going to take off our brass handle. It's a little bit loose. And then also it is missing a little, whatever these little fillers are that go here. And I thought that I had some, but it's too big. And the only one that I have is actually flat, but that's what fits. So I'm going to work to just kind of round the edges and soften it. It'll still be flatter in there, but I think because I'm going to paint it, that it will actually blend in and you won't really notice once it's been painted. So first I'm going to start with seeing if I can get these nuts off of here without having to go out to the shop again. But these are pretty rusty, so I don't know. Using this funky little flat plier here.
So using my mug and pushing it down in there, I will add the Amazon link to this glue. I absolutely love it. I use it for metal and plastic and wood. Haven't found anything yet that it doesn't work great for, but that accelerator will dry it in about 15 seconds. A wet wipe to kind of get some of the dirt and grime off of it before I paint it with our Fusion All-in-One Carriage House Green. Using a smaller brush, I'm going to get down in between those slats, doing the top and the bottom just with that small brush there, making sure that our color gets down in between all the slats used to make this piece. Top and bottom, and then I'm going to switch to a larger brush to actually make quick order of getting the entire piece painted. This paint, I really only needed 1 coat because it has really good coverage, and then plus I'm going to distress it a little bit, and so I wasn't too worried. You can add 2 coats if you wanted that crisp finish. It has a self-leveler so you can't see those brush strokes. But again, I just love things looking, kind of distressed and old. It just adds a little bit of wear and age to it so it doesn't look like a brand new piece. Having trouble holding my sandpaper, so I'm just going to grab my buffer brush there and use it to hold my paper. And I'm just kind of getting anywhere that it would have worn naturally. You have to be careful sometimes when you add that distress look. You don't want to make it look like a leopard and have random distressing somewhere it wouldn't actually have worn on its own. And then just wiping it down real quick because our next step is we're going to take an IOD transfer. This is the Floral Anthology. Yeah, sorry, couldn't remember, can't read it. And this is the very last page. This is an older one I've had for a while. And I'm going to cut off those little extras around the side. Make sure you save those because you can always add those to some of the smaller pieces and other things where you just need a little extra floral. I always make sure to save any of the little pieces that I cut off. And I love that little flower. Anyway, just cut it off, peel off the backing, and stick it down. It does really well because this paint has that sealer in it, so it's very smooth. I find that I need to seal when I use my clay-based paints. I do a lot better when I seal it. Now, you can let those dry and still put a transfer over top without sealing, but you have to really make sure that they are dry and have had a little bit of time to cure. So I go ahead and, because of these slats, I'm making sure that I'm rubbing there first in the section that I'm doing, because I want to ensure that when I cut it later that it is really adhered. Now, remember those little fillers that are going over the screws that hold this together? I'm having to really work around that just to make sure. It'll kind of crack a little bit, but that's okay. Remember, we're going with a aged, worn look. So I'm just working a little extra there, making sure that it's down, and that way when I can just kind of go over it with my sandpaper. You can see that it is adhering. Notice when I rub over it how it kind of gets a little opaque looking. That is letting me know that it is actually no longer attached to the carrier sheet and it is hooked down to my piece. Then I'm just using my blade here to cut, and then I'm going to use a little spatula. It's kind of my tool that I use, my all tool that I do, whether I'm scraping something off or whatever I'm doing. This little spatula I just put in there and kind of wiggle back and forth and make sure that the transfer is attached on both sides. Now the paint doesn't need sealed, but the transfer needs sealed. Once you put a transfer down, you want to put something over it to make sure you seal it. It kind of bonds it with your piece. So I'm going to go ahead and use this dark wax. Again, like the other, with this paint, you don't need to use that clear because it has that sealer. You can still wipe back okay and don't have to worry about it being too dark. So I'm just going to cover everything, top and bottom, wipe off the S, and then I will get it all buffed and cleaned, and I absolutely love the way this has turned out. I put the handle back on it, and then I took a little bit of that Debi's Design Diary Golden Rule. It's the gold gilding wax, and I'm just kind of touching up that handle. It's not wanting to focus here. But I just kind of added some. It had some worn, rusty places, and it still looks worn, but now it's just a little bit more touched up.
Take a train ride just to see you. Ride for hours.